Okay guys, now to look at some plots, and what I want to look at today is a study looking at variable inputs or variable herbicide inputs in wheat, and we're going to look specifically at ryegrass, and we'll also talk a little bit about just general winter annual broadleaf control as well. So that would be henbit, the chickweeds, mare's tail, field pennycrest. Those would be the ones that I would clump into there, and I'll just consider those as general winter annual broadleaves for today. So we'll look at these plots. This specific trial is supported by the small grain growers. So starting off right here, what we're looking at here is with this plot, we're treating it a little bit like an untreated. The only thing this plot has ever received was a burn down of glyphosate or 32 fluid ounces around the Power Max at burn down or at planting. And you can see as we move in here, I'll try to zoom in here, you see there's some ryegrass there, and as we get in here you can see there's actually quite a bit of a ryegrass infestation in this plot. So as we get into here, there's quite a bit of ryegrass in here, and if you dig down in through there, you're going to find some broadleaves as well. So with just glyphosate at the burn down, we're not going to get that great of overall weed control here. So certainly going to need something more for that ryegrass as well as other broadleaves. But again, essentially our untreated check here. As we move on, what we have next here, this is again just that same burn down with glyphosate, but then came back in the spring with Harmony. And so that Harmony is going to do a really good job for us, or Harmony Extra is going to do a really good job for us cleaning up those broadleaves. But what it's not going to do is it's not going to help us with that ryegrass control. And you can see all those ryegrass panicles sticking up through there, all those ryegrass seed heads. Pretty dense infestation of ryegrass within this plot here, and that's going to be found throughout this trial, where Harmony Extra is not going to provide us ryegrass control, but we do get really good annual broadleaf control with this. Now moving on to the next plot, it's going to look very similar, where we have lots of ryegrass in here. Just take a look back at the whole thing, but as we get in here, you're going to see there's a lot of ryegrass in this, and this is the same program, but instead of Harmony Extra, we just use QLEX in our spring application, and that QLEX is going to do a good job against our winter annuals out there, and it is a good product for that. Does not help us with the ryegrass though. So these last two plots, just with the spring application of Harmony Extra or QLEX, it's going to do a really good job cleaning up some winter annuals for us, but those are products that are not going to pick up that ryegrass for us. And if we're needing ryegrass control, that's where the next plot's going to come in. And with this plot, as we look at it, nice clean plot, not really any ryegrass in this plot. And what this is again a burn down of just glyphosate, but then came in at early post, which actually ended up being about mid-December for us in this trial, and that was with Axial Bold. So Axial Bold is a post-emergence product that is going to be effective on annual ryegrass, and it's kind of the standard right now for post-emergence applications, and it works really well. And if you look at this plot, or this treatment throughout this trial, is one of the best looking ryegrass treatments out there. So I will come back to talk about this a little bit, but again, when you're talking about just ryegrass control, the only thing that's been put on here for that is the Axial, and we'll show you that Axial Bold does a really good job with controlling that ryegrass. But if you dig down in there, you are going to find quite a few winter annuals or broadleaf winter annuals, and that's simply because that Axial doesn't bring anything to the table as far as broadleaves go. And again, we haven't had anything on here for broadleaf since that glyphosate at the burn down. So moving on to the next treatment, you're going to see we're just kind of stacking layers here. This is with the Axial in that early post, and then following that up with Harmony Extra. So kind of doing a combination here. The Axial is taking care of all that ryegrass, and then your Harmony Extra is going to take care of those broadleaves down in there. An overall good treatment for both sectors of those weeds. And then as we move to the next plot, what you're going to have is a similar results, but this is with the QLEX rather than the Harmony Extra. So Axial Bold, early post, and coming back in the spring with QLEX. So for a lot of our farmers, the temptation, if they're dealing with ryegrass, and obviously still going to have some other broadleaf winter annuals out there, they're probably going to go with one of these two, and that's going to be the Axial early post, and following that up in the spring with either Harmony Extra or QLEX or a similar product, and that's going to pick up all the broadleaves in the spring. And both of these plots look really good. There are a few things, or there is a reason why we would discourage this, and that would simply be because of resistance management, and that's resistance management of that ryegrass. And all we're really using against that ryegrass is that axial bold with that group 1 in that product. And with that, we do know we already have pinoxidin resistant ryegrass within the state, so that's why we warn against just using axial. And as we move on here, we'll see what we should be using, or what we should be using in combination with that. And that does bring us to our next plot here. And with this plot, at burn down was glyphosate and Anthem Flex. Okay, so and nothing else went on this plot. And while Anthem Flex did a really good job here, you can still find a few ryegrass plants in here. It's certainly going to be better than nothing at all, or no pre at all, but there are going to be a few escapes. And much like the pre's we talk about within our other cropping systems, we don't expect our residual herbicides to do everything for us, but still, for the only thing being out here being Anthem Flex pre, and then really nothing else the rest of the season, it looks pretty good for ryegrass control as compared to those other plots where we didn't have any pre or any axial out there. So again, speaking to the power of a residual herbicide in wheat, and that's where that Anthem Flex is going to stand out, and that's using that pyroxasulfone product. So a few other products would be Zidua, or the Fierce products are going to help us as well. They're also going to bring that pyroxasulfone to the table and help us with getting some pre-emergence control on the ryegrass. So this is what we would recommend, is having some type of residual on there to help us with that ryegrass. Okay, so next here we have the Anthem Flex. And so with that past plot, you are going to have some escapes on your broadleaves, on your winter annual broadleaves, because the Anthem Flex just doesn't, it's not going to hold up for all those broadleaves. It'll hold back a few, but not all of them. With this one here, we have the Anthem Flex pre, and then following that with Harmony Extra in the spring. So that Harmony Extra is going to clean up those winter annuals, or the broadleaf winter annuals. And then again, the Anthem Flex is really bringing a lot to the table when it comes to ryegrass. There are a few escaped ryegrass plants in there. Again, we normally wouldn't expect Anthem Flex to last us the whole season against ryegrass. And then here in treatment number 9, same thing, but just Culex instead of Harmony Extra. So you're going to find a few ryegrass escapes out there. The Culex is going to pick up those broadleaves, but you are going to have some escapes on the ryegrass on the Anthem Flex there, as we would expect. And then treatment 10 here, what we're looking at is kind of a triple stack. So this is the Anthem Flex, and then following it with axial, and then nothing in the spring. So I guess it would only be 2 applications. Sorry about that. So what this would be is Anthem Flex pre and then axial. So if you're looking at kind of a really good ryegrass treatment, this is what we have. And again, you have that Anthem Flex that looks really good as far as controlling that ryegrass, and then you bring in the axial early post, and that cleans up any escapes that made it through the Anthem Flex. And as far as a long-term goal or long-term control and resistance management, this is what we want to see. Again, if you think back to the axial only plot we looked at earlier, that looked really good and just as good as this plot. So short term, you would say, why do I need the Anthem Flex? And the answer is, it's really a long-term goal. It's really about thinking about resistance management. And again, we do have axial resistant or pinoxidin resistant ryegrass in the state. So for anybody dealing with ryegrass, you really need to have some kind of residual in there and take some of the pressure off that axial, because it is really the only post option a lot of you guys have right now with a lot of the ALS resistance that's going on in the state. So then moving on here to treatment number 11, what we're looking at here is, this is the triple stack I was referring to, and basically that's going to be Anthem Flex pre, coming in with axial in that earlier post, and then coming in with a Harmony Extra. So probably the most extensive treatment we have in this trial, 3 different applications. It's going to cost you some money, but this is going to be you know, really picks up, gives you multiple sites of action for picking up that ryegrass, and then also coming in with a Harmony Extra in order to clean up those broadleaves late in the season. So a lot put into this one, but we're going to be cleaning not only of our ryegrass, but also of our winter annual broadleaves. And then the same thing here on treatment 12. Instead of Harmony Extra in the spring, it has QLEX. So you guys can decide which one of those spring treatments you want. We put them both in there. Within this trial, they're working pretty equivalently together. Each has its own strong suit, but again, having the Anthem Flex as well as the Axial to pick up your ryegrass, a good robust ryegrass program, and then having that spring application of QLEX to pick up your broadleaf winter annuals. Okay, now the next set is going to be similar, except for our pre is going to be Finesse, Cereal, and Fallow. And that's all that went on this here, Finesse, Cereal, and Fallow pre-emergence. And as we get into here, I'll zoom in a little bit here. And what you're seeing in there with the wheat and quite a pretty heavy infestation, that's going to be your ryegrass. Okay, so Finesse is not going to offer us a whole lot of ryegrass residual. It might get you a little bit, but it's not going to offer us a whole lot as far as residual against ryegrass. So again, this had nothing following it. But when we look at this trial, as far as overall winter annual broadleaves, it really holds together really well. This particular plot's a little bit of a mess because of the ryegrass, but when we look at the numbers and look at just Finesse by itself and just our general winter annual broadleaves, it can stand up putting it down pre and doesn't really need anything following it in the spring. So it is a good product if you're not dealing with ryegrass, and we do know that there's farmers in Kentucky that are doing this, just putting down the Finesse in the fall and then leaving it alone and having pretty good luck with it. But again, not going to work really well if you have ryegrass. So moving on here, this is just the Finesse again, that's put down pre and then following that up in the spring with Harmony Extra. Maybe we don't really need that Harmony Extra, but again, with this one, you are going to lose a little bit of control, or you're not going to have much control on that ryegrass simply because neither one of these products has a strong suit against annual ryegrass. And then in the next treatment, what we're looking at is just QLEX rather than Harmony Extra for that spring application. So really the strength of these is those winter annual broadleaves. And again, you can see there's a lot of ryegrass throughout these treatments because QLEX is not a product that's going to have any control over your ryegrass, and Finesse, Cereal, and Fallow might have a little bit, but for most of our populations in Kentucky, it's not really going to have much control at all because of the ALS resistance that's out there. So some good treatments if you're thinking about just your general winter annual broadleaves, but against annual ryegrass is not going to work really well, and that's where the next ones come into play, and that's going in there with the Finesse early and then coming back with Axial. Okay, so this is Finesse pre. That Finesse is going to pick up. It's going to be a good pre against those winter annual broadleaves, and then coming in with the Axial to pick up that ryegrass. Now again, the thing I would warn you about against on this one is just simply it's not good resistance management when it comes to that ryegrass, because the only thing going on there that's effective is that Axial product. So again, this is a situation if you're dealing with ryegrass where we prefer a pyroxasulfone based product like Anthem Flex or Zidua or Fierce over the Finesse, Cereal, and Fallow. So it all really kind of depends on what your major weed target is here. And so the final two treatments here, again, Finesse pre, Axial early post, and this is Harmony Extra, and then Finesse, Axial, QLEX. So you can kind of see how we're building these programs. So these two here are going to be pretty robust, a lot of product on the ground. We're not going to have a lot of winter annuals out there at all, a lot of broadleaf winter annuals. You might have a few ryegrass escapes, but not a lot. Again, that Axial Bold works really well against that ryegrass. But again, when it comes to long-term or resistance management, we would really like to have a pre out there that has some pyroxasulfone. So overall, in this trial, again, when we look at just the input, it really kind of depends on what weeds you're dealing with. And so if you're dealing with ryegrass, you're probably going to have to put a little bit more into it. You're going to have to think about using one of those pre's that has pyroxasulfone, following it up with an axial product to clean up anything that escapes that. And then even at that, you still might have to come back and clean up with a spring application of something like Harmony Extra or Culex. Whereas if you're just dealing with a field that doesn't have a lot of ryegrass or no ryegrass in it, and you just have a lot of winter annuals, we can get away with some of these other programs using finesse and coming back with a spring application. So just a few examples. There's a lot more products out there, but just trying to look here at some different input levels. And again, we'll continue to look at this, and I'll show you a few numbers here on a few slides, kind of referring back to the importance of not only that axial product and how well it works against ryegrass, but also that finesse product as well. So that's the plots we want to show you here today. And from here, we'll go back in and look at a few numbers on the PowerPoint. Okay, guys, now to just show you a few numbers. Now we've wrapped up looking at those plots, just show you a few numbers to go with those plots. And what we have here is these are all those same treatments laid out here in your in a PowerPoint file here. And again, what we had was starting off first 6 plots or first 6 treatments we looked at there, just simply Roundup, Paramex, and the burn down with nothing as a residual, and then either followed by no post, Harmony Extra in the spring, Culex in the spring, Axial Bold, E-Post, or the combination of Axial Bold, early post followed by Harmony Extra or followed by Culex. And then those same sets of treatments, but except for using Anthem Flex as our residual. And then finally, the next 6 are the same sets except for the same sets of post, just with Finesse Cereal and Fallow as our pre. So again, just want to highlight a few of these things. You guys saw it out there in the plots, but just to highlight a few things with the numbers here. Again, you can see how effective Axial Bold is just as a one-pass program essentially in this treatment. The only thing against ryegrass is Axial Bold giving you 95% control, comparing that to 20% control in our pretty much our untreated that we had out there. So shows you how well Axial Bold really does work. And again, when we look at these 2 plots here where we follow that up with Harmony Extra and Culex to clean up that hen bit, these are really tempting treatments to do simply because they do look really good in the short term. But again, the thing we'll warn you about is with these treatments, Axial Bold is the only product that we're putting out there against that ryegrass. And so we are likely selecting for some resistance events to occur, especially knowing or considering the fact that we do have pinoxidin resistant ryegrass within the state. So we need to avoid these types of situations, not as a short-term goal, but rather a long-term goal in preserving this product, preserving Axial as an effective product for us against ryegrass. And that's again where we come in and say, let's use a product like Anthem Flex in our burn down. This residual Anthem Flex has pyroxasulfone in it, and that's what's giving us that good control of ryegrass. Some other products that would fit in this category would be Fierce, Fierce Easy, or Zidua. So again, in this trial, we used Anthem Flex, but you could use any of those 4 products pretty effectively as a ryegrass pre-emerge product. And you can see that here only using the Anthem Flex, we get 63% control, again, as compared to this plot up here at 20% control. And that's just using Anthem Flex and nothing else. And what looks even better is when we come in with Axial Bold and that E-Post, getting 86 to 96% control. And this is what we'd like to see for our ryegrass programs, is having a residual out there early and then coming back with Axial Bold to clean them up. Because again, we don't expect the Anthem Flex to do everything on its own. We expect to have to come back with the Axial Bold. But again, we're getting multiple sites of action out there. We're preserving our sites of action and really helping ourselves mitigate resistance in the long run. And again, for the most part, you're probably going to want to have some Harmony Extra or Culex out there as well to pick up that hen bit and some of the other winter annuals that are out there. And then the last thing I'll point out again with the Finesse Cereal and Fallow, it's just this is a product, if you're not dealing with ryegrass, it does really stand out as a pre alone. You can see you're getting 97% hen bit control, and when we did some counts and combined all the winter annuals, we saw the same thing again. A really good standalone product. There are some of our wheat farmers in Kentucky that can get away with this. I'm not saying it's everybody, and if you're dealing with ryegrass, it's not going to pick up anything for ryegrass, so you're still going to have some Axial Bold. And again, the warning there is in these systems, even though you're putting a lot of product on the ground, the only thing effective against ryegrass is this Axial Bold. So it all depends on what your overall weed driver weed is, whether it's ryegrass or just your general winter annuals. But just to give you a little look at several combinations there in the field, as well as giving you some numbers. So I appreciate you watching today, and thanks for tuning in.